for joining me. Today at Remedy School I'm going to be talking about rose hips and making a syrup or elixir from them. Now you can gather these rose hips in the wild or from a neighbor's yard or from your own yard. Just be sure you have permission and be sure they haven't been sprayed by pesticides. And know that you know how to correctly identify them. And the real key is wait until after the first frost, because that's when the medicinal properties have matured and it's just the optimum time to gather the rose hips. Once you've harvested them, then all you need to do is simply remove them from the stems and then remove the little leaves from the other end and gather them up in a bowl. Now that we have harvested and processed our rose hips, we are going to make a delicious spiced rose hip honey. And I have my beautiful daughter Joya here to help show us how to do it. Joya also likes to take some of the rose hip branches aside after we harvest and make beautiful arrangements. She'll stick some in wreaths, and I just think it's beautiful. Well done, Joya.
Thank you.
So we're going to start with about 2 cups of rose hips. I'm just going to toss them right in the blender.
2 tablespoons cinnamon. You can also use powdered if that's what you have. 2 tablespoons orange peel. You can also use fresh. 2 vanilla beans. And about this much ginger.
It's just that easy. We're going to kind of level it out a little bit with a spoon. And then we're just going to barely cover that with some raw organic honey. You don't want to use the kind that you get at the grocery store unless it's marked local, raw, and organic, because a lot of the honey that's in the markets now actually comes from China. So it might take, you might have to add a little and then let it kind of sink and settle down amongst the herbs, but I think that that looks about right. My honey is warmed. I'm just going to add a little bit more. So, you know, it's probably going to be just about a cup of honey, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
About a cup. Okay. So, now we're just going to turn the blender on, keep it on the low. Okay, great. It's looking like it blended into a pretty good slurry. Do you smell that? It has such a nice spicy scent. And you want it to be really strong because you are just going to be kind of adding it to teas for extra flavor. So, you know, an extra bit of punch is really good, and it's also warming on a cold winter's day. So I'm just going to pour all of this into our mason jar. I ended up using about 2 cups of honey after all, so we're going to end up with almost a quart of the syrup. And our next step is just to kind of keep it warm. I don't like to heat. You could, and a lot of people would, just put this in a double boiler and cook it for a couple of hours, but since the honey is raw and since heat damages a lot of the medicinal properties of honey, we're just gonna, I'll show you how to keep it a gentle heat on it. Okay, put it on it. Oh, it's delicious. It's perfect. And we're gonna just, this is just an old heating pad. That we're gonna wrap around the jar and turn it on high. And if you don't have an old heating pad, some people use light bulbs for this. If you have a yogurt warmer, then that works too.
And this is just a normal pot, and we're gonna put that over the honey in the heating pad, and this will help keep the heat in.
Perfect.
And we'll just keep that just like that for about 2 days.
Now we're going to strain it. You want to make sure that it's nice and warm. You might have to set it in a hot water bath for about half an hour to get it nice and thin. If it's still not thin enough, you can add vanilla extract or cinnamon extract or lemon juice or some maple syrup, anything that's going to thin it down. Sometimes the rose hips tend to be a little thicker than other times. Then you're just going to kind of scrape it through a sieve to get the big seeds out. Once the big seeds are out, then we're going to strain it through some kind of mesh fabric. I like to use a nut milk bag. The idea here is that we're getting rid of the little fine hairs that are inside the rose hips that can be kind of irritating. And the other option that we have here is to remove those before we make all this, which is a very tedious process. Trust me, this way is much easier. And once you have it all pressed out through the bag, then you just simply pour it into the containers that you want to use. Here I've just used a mason jar and then a decorative bottle. I collect them throughout the year from thrift stores or just recycle, repurpose your old bottles that you have. One is just the syrup, and then I also like to add brandy to taste for the adults, and it makes a great cocktail addition, and these are both great in tea. And to make this tea, I just brewed some really strong black tea and added some frothed milk and about a tablespoon of the rosehip syrup. And there you go, your daily dose of vitamin C, and delicious. It even got the thumbs up from Joya. So kid approved.